What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All-22 NFL Podcast Daily, the official podcast of the All-22 Fantasy Football platform, the only fantasy football game with full 53-man rosters, including offensive linemen, where you get to choose personnel packages and have access to PFF grading and advanced stats to make decisions each week. To learn more and sign up, go to all-22.com. Day one of the NFL draft is it's done, dude. It's done. I'm exhausted. We were up to like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, up at 5 a.m. with the kid, 3 hours of sleep, woke up to do research. Like once I was up, how are you feeling? I'm pretty beat.
I'm great. It's like a 72-hour long adrenaline rush. And then come like Saturday at like 7 p.m. I'm like, whew, all right. And that's still like not even halfway through the weekend, technically, if you think about it, but I'm just done at that point. But no, I'm still on the upswing. I'm still on the adrenaline rush. I'm good to go.
You're riding it, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Yeah. You just got to speak it into existence.
It was a day that brings that energy. It was insane. We got 6 quarterbacks off the board in the first 12 picks. That's never happened before in the first 32 picks. So really exciting day. But I mean, even more exciting, there was like an insane amount of offensive linemen that went off the board, right? We're all 22. This is exactly what we were made for. We're going to do a quick episode talking about the picks we liked, picks we didn't like, maybe some reaches as well, because I think there's a difference. There's a clear difference between what we think is a reach and what we think is a miss. So I think we should make that distinction when we're going through this, and then maybe do like a best remaining. How's that sound?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Where do you want to start?
I'm going to cheat. And I have my 3 that are separate than this group, but the offensive linemen, I could have picked any of them, right? Like Joe Alt to the Chargers at 5. He was my 3 on my big board. Olu at 11 to the Jets was my 6. Fuanga at 14 to the Saints was my 12. Mims at 18 to the Bengals was my 22. Foutnow at 20 to the Steelers is my 16. That's 5 guys. Like we only are going to do 3 each, but like I wonder if we can find 3 outside of those 5, because I honestly look at that group and I say each one of them is a talent that they either got above where, like I thought they would go, and I think they're a great player and deserve the spot, and they went to really good situations that are going to bring out the most in them. I think all to the Chargers, insane, right? They now have 2 bookend tackles that are potentially the best in the NFL. Olo to the Jets, we were talking about that, how we needed that to happen. Everybody was saying it was going to be Bowers. We wanted Olu. It's the right decision. You need to protect Rodgers. You get the best pass blocking offensive tackle in this draft. Makes all the sense in the world. Fuanga, 14 to the Saints. Again, just a huge need, fit with a great player on a really good team. Like this is how things work well. Mims at 18 to the Bengals. We talked about him being a project, but what a better situation to go to, where it has the best receiving group in the NFL, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. They make your job so easy, right? Like it's just a match made in heaven. And then Foutnow at 20 to the Steelers. That's the guy I think we both ideally wanted for the Cowboys and Packers. We knew it wasn't going to happen, but this is the best all-around offensive lineman that could play any position, right? Like you could plug him anywhere and he could be great. And he goes to the Steelers offense that now is building this offensive line to be something special. I loved all 5 of those. I hope you didn't choose all of your 3 within those 5, because we need something else to talk about.
No, I just got 1 because I knew you were going to go that route. And I said, you know what? I know what Chris is going to do. He's going to take the low hanging fruit. He's going to do the easy thing, take the easy way out. I didn't do that. So I'm going to kick it off.
Just to be clear, I have 3 others. This was just a cherry on the top, baby.
Sure. The one of my 3 is in there, just 1.
Okay.
But for reasons that I don't feel like anyone has talked about, but then again, we didn't exactly catch all of the TV broadcast last night with what we had going on during the draft. So I'll start with the one that I do have among those 5, which is Amarius Mims, of course, to the Bengals. And as you know, that broke my heart. But the Bengals' current offensive tackles, Orlando and Trent Brown, they are 6'8", 345 and 6'8", 370. Amarius Mims is like 6'8", 340 plus. I mean, so they all have the same exact archetype. So for someone who started 8 games in college, who's doesn't have a ton of experience, but all the potential in the world, he's in a room with players and veterans built just like him. So things that work for an offensive tackle that is 6'4" and 310 pounds, that doesn't always work. You can't translate that to someone who's 6'8", 340 plus. It's just a different way of playing the game. So for someone like Mims to go into a room with guys just like him, that's the perfect transition for him. Trent Brown, his contract is up after this year. He's getting older, so it's a very clear path to right tackle, which is what he played at Georgia as well. So the position transition, you're talking about the whole position switch from right to left and how that could potentially happen for a lot of these guys in the class. Not necessarily the case with Mims, so it seems. So again, it's a very clear path for a player who probably needed it more than most, even if we're sky high on his potential, and I'm totally fine taking a swing at him and thought he should go, right around probably a few picks earlier. I think that's the perfect situation for him. And then, as you mentioned, on top of that fact, you go into the weapons on that offense. The quarterback is set. They have their franchise guy in place. We'll see, if Higgins is there long-term or what have you, but they have great weapons regardless. They have Jamar Chase. So, that's going to be a great potent offense for him to go into. Things are probably going to be a lot clearer for him at the line of scrimmage, as opposed to going to a place where they don't have receiving weapons to really sort of threaten the defense vertically. So I think it's a great situation for Mims to go in first and foremost. So I guess I'll kick off our three separate from that group that you mentioned with Amarius Mims and why I think that's just a perfect fit for him in Cincinnati.
That's a great point, dude. I didn't even think of that. And it's crazy because, the reason I mentioned those 5, of all the offensive linemen that were taken, I think there was 9, but those 5 feel like can't misses in all 22. Like, if you're going to take one of those guys, they just feel so safe. Offensive tackle is a very important, heavy-weighted position in all 22. You fill it so easily with 5 guys. Like, 5 guys are going to be there. So can't miss. My first one, my actual first, I'm going to switch my hat, right? So like I was talking about the 5 tackles being great for all 22. I'm not necessarily saying that these picks are good for all 22, but now I'm talking about these are picks that I just want to congratulate the GM of the Vikings because I think he did an amazing job, right? We talk about team building. We talk about how we would build these teams and what the infrastructure should look like. Minnesota didn't panic and they didn't flail their arms and go all out for Drake May. Maybe May is the better quarterback by a significant margin, but instead you get JJ McCarthy at 10, which is great value. I had him as my 11th guy on my big board, so it's right there. And then you get Dallas Turner at 17 at edge, and he was my 10, right? So you get 2 essentially top 10 players on my big board to fill your need at 2 of the most important positions in football, right? Edge being the most highly weighted position on defense, quarterback being the highest weighted on offense. You fill both with 2 very, very promising players. The reason I'm saying that they're my picks for, if I was a GM, I'd probably do something similar, and not if I'm a GM of an all-22 team, now I'm going to go grab these guys. It's because I still think that these are raw, talented players that may not hit, right? Like JJ could fail. Turner could fail. They aren't surefire guys. I think they're very talented players, but they're not surefire. So it's a different outlook, and it's if I was the GM of a team, I would congratulate him and say, he did a great job.
What was your ratio you gave, your percentage about whether one of, or at least one of Daniels and May would hit as a top 8 quarterback?
Yeah, you say top 8. I said 15% that one of them would.
Yeah. I think there is a 28% chance both of those guys hit.
Okay.
I think there is a greater than 50% chance at least one of them is a flat out bust.
Okay.
I think the floor is low for both of them, but if they hit, it's fantastic. I don't think you pass on Dallas Turner at that point in the draft. It was a need for you. If you had him at the top of your board, then you go ahead and take him because he has all the gifts in the world. And just, again, we kind of talked about it. Alabama, you kind of wait your turn, and then you maybe play a season as the guy, and then you're off to the NFL, and maybe you didn't hone in on a lot of those good habits that you could have with just through reps in season. because it's an assembly line out there, or at least was under Saban. So that goes into the rawness of him as a prospect, him being Turner. And we talked enough about JJ McCarthy. You're never going to get me to talk about what an amazing job a GM did when he came out with JJ McCarthy. So just going to put that out there. But I get it, especially they hit their needs. If they came into the draft needing a quarterback and an edge, and they got two with upside.
But it's also like,
and didn't give up their picks, which
they didn't give up their
thing.
picks.
Yeah,
right. But it's also, if you were starting a team today, how would you do it? Right. And like, that's kind of what Minnesota, the situation they're in, right? Like, they're just lucky that they also have the number one receiver, dynasty receiver in football, with Justin Jefferson just sitting there. Right. And then a couple of good offensive linemen. But if you were starting a franchise today, it's like you'd go corner and edge, because those are the foundational pieces. Minnesota is in a really good position now, considering the value they got at those picks. But yes, you're right. It's the percentage of that both of them hitting is not super high, still worthwhile pick. So that's why they're mine. I'm using that as one. So you go ahead. Tell me your second.
You're such a cheater.
You're
going to love my second one.
Okay.
Your boy, Brian Thomas Jr. to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay. They obviously had a huge need at wide receiver. Okay. Trevor Lawrence was the 5th highest graded passer in 2023 on throws of 20 yards or more downfield of all quarterbacks with at least 40 attempts. Every quarterback that was ranked higher than him in that category had a longer time to throw than Trevor Lawrence did. His was under 3 seconds, I believe, on those passes. Brian Thomas Jr. is a deep threat who had 12 touchdowns on passes of 20 or more yards downfield in 2023. So you could talk about his warts, his faults, his body language, how raw he is, his release, but the fit is just clear as day. It's a deep threat for a quarterback who's just starving for a deep threat and can obviously make things happen if he has one. And now he has one. So Thomas Jr. is someone, especially in All-22, could have gone either way and still could go either way in general, as far as stock up or stock down with his career, because there is some boom or bust potential there that we've gone over during our wide receiver episode and sort of just throughout the podcast in the last few weeks. But the fit is perfect. And he has a clear role, a clear distributor of the football at quarterback, and a grown up as a head coach. And now that they don't have Urban Meyer anymore, right? I think the fit is perfect. So whether it works out and he is an ultimate hit is to be determined. But as far as best fit goes, where he could have gone to have the best chance to be a hit in the NFL and in All-22, it's exactly where he should have gone.
I couldn't agree more. I don't like the player. Like, it's not the player that I would want on my team. And I think it's interesting because I think in traditional fantasy, he probably isn't a superstar. Like, even if that situation works out for him, because I think that you got Kirk as the possession guy who's going to get a lot of targets. They just brought in Gabe Davis, who's going to get some as well. Brian Thomas probably is the best of the three, but might be limited because they might just kind of use him as that deep threat, which is limiting, right? But it might be really good in All-22 when it doesn't matter if you're just, a 100 reception guy. Volume doesn't necessarily matter. Snaps matter, right? Volume and snaps matter, and what you do with those snaps and how you separate things like that. He might be fantastic at that in this situation with Trevor Lawrence. But yesterday I talked about how if I was Trevor Lawrence and the Jags went defense again and didn't get me a receiver, I was out. I was giving up
to
deuces,
hold the franchise hostage.
100%. I'm putting deuces in the air and I'm leaving. Like, they didn't really have a choice. They had to go receiver because they have a franchise generational talent at quarterback, and you need to make the most of that. And I think we're talking about the value for the players that were drafted, which agreed, Brian Thomas, it's great for him, but it's huge for Trevor Lawrence. Might be even bigger for Trevor Lawrence. So you got to be excited if you're a Trevor Lawrence,
which
manager.
I am.
Yeah. Which you are. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to stay with receiver, and I'm going to go with my absolute boy, Xavier Worthy. I'm going with Xavier Worthy.
Clear as day.
Yeah. And it's
I
a
purposely
layup.
didn't take him for this.
I really appreciate it. This is my 15th ranked player on my big board, right? I had him 15 out of the 50 that I ranked, and Kansas City gets him at 28. This is a nightmare for everyone in the NFL. It's an absolute nightmare. forget the 4.21 speed, right? You and I watched the film. We watched games and games of this guy playing football. This is more than speed. This is a really, really good football player that matches his speed with production. We're talking about over 2,200 career yards, right? And those aren't all just deep throws down the field. This is a player that can do everything. He can run routes. He can take screens to the house. He can go deep down the field. And besides all of that, he can be a safety blanket for Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce's getting older. That's not going to be there forever. I like that they brought in Marquise Brown. I like that Xavier Worthy is going to be able to play with Marquise Brown. This is going to be a really fun offense to watch, but just like imagine the fastest receiver in the NFL with some production and really good skills, also playing with the best quarterback in the NFL. It's just like, it's a recipe for success. I love it. I couldn't be more excited. The only thing that's so bizarre to me is why Buffalo didn't do it. They traded back with Kansas City and let Kansas City make this pick instead of staying there and taking it themselves. I thought that was really, really strange, but I know Kansas City knows what they're doing, and this is going to be fantastic for them.
Yeah, that's going to be a storyline whenever they play is how does Worthy do against Buffalo when he was there for them and they didn't take him and they traded away from him. So we'll see. I mean, we said it on our mock episode that the league is going to somehow allow the Chiefs to get Xavier Worthy. And everyone's going to look at each other a year from now and go, why did you all let this happen? This is why people say you don't know how to draft. Teams don't know how to draft because sometimes you just got to come together. You just got to come together and say, we're not going to let that guy go to that team. You just got to do it. You got to do it. And they didn't do it. They let Worthy go to the Chiefs. The fit is phenomenal. I think someone like Worthy helps. Even if Kelce slows down a bit, he's still keeping things open across the middle of the field because of his of the threat of his speed. And with the arm angles and the releases for Mahomes, the things they could do in the quick game, it's a great fit. So I totally agree. That's a good one for sure. I knew you were going to go there. That's your guy. I was like, I'll let Chris have this one.
I appreciate it.
So I'll go to the other side of the ball and just wrap up my third, which is actually Byron Murphy, the second to Seattle. I feel like this one's a little underrated, but I absolutely love it. He's next to Leonard Williams.
So happy you're talking about it.
Good. You didn't. I didn't steal it from you, did I?
No, I wanted us to talk about it though, so I'm happy you did.
Good. Yeah. So he's next to Leonard Williams. They do have a good young edge rusher in Boye Mafe. I know a lot of people said, hey, they could go edge, and yeah, they could use edge. And Wosu's not exactly lighting the world on fire or anything. But if you look at their pass defense as a whole, they are a top 10 unit in coverage. And so when you pair someone like Murphy next to Williams, that helps against the run and pass. So again, it's more of a symbiotic thing between their coverage unit and just overall pressure from the front of that defense. Murphy is fantastic there. He had 6 sacks and 36 pressures last season at Texas. Again, from the interior, that's phenomenal play, phenomenal numbers for one single college season. So you already have a solid coverage unit. He's going to add to that with pressure up the middle, which again will help the defense overall. Next to someone like Leonard Williams, who was the 5th best defensive interior player in All-22 in 2023. So yes, he's turning 30. So you want to balance out that room a little bit, compliment him, get a little bit younger, but you still have those good years of play left, maybe 1 or 2 from Leonard Williams at that top level. It's perfect. So yes, you still need an edge player. Not sure, some people are high on Michael Jackson at the outside corner, outside of Tariq Woolen. And then you also have Witherspoon there as well. Obviously, who had a phenomenal rookie season. So the pieces are there on defense, but they needed that presence in the middle as well. And Murphy provides that. So I think it's a fantastic pick. I was smitten with the pick when they made it, and not enough people are talking about it.
Totally. And I mean, pressure in the middle sometimes is more effective than pressure on the outside. Teams can scheme for pressure on the outside by staying in the middle if the middle isn't strong. This erases that. And when you have Devin Witherspoon and you have Tariq Woolen, that's what you want. You want the quarterback to have to get the ball out of his hand really quickly so those guys can capitalize on mistakes. I love that pick. And I didn't want us to just talk about receivers because my last guy is a receiver, and I have to talk about pretty Ricky Pearsall.
Oh my God.
Like I have to, right? Like
I hear those two words put together one more time this weekend.
yeah. If you guys out there didn't follow Pretty Ricky this weekend, you're dreaming. I highly recommend you go follow that dude.
The R&B
But
artist, that's what we're talking about.
of course, Ricky Pearsall was my 28 on my big board. He went 31 to San Francisco. And I think there's a lot of people out there scratching their heads because maybe they didn't have Pearsall as high. And they thought, if it was going to be a player like this, would it have been either AD Mitchell or Ladd McConkey? And I'd say the difference between those players is production. Production matters to NFL teams. They want to see that you've done it. And yes, maybe they'll work with a raw prospect to make him better. But when you're choosing between the two, if all else is equal, you go with the guy with the production. It's obvious San Francisco is planning on trading either Debo or Ayuk, and Pearsall steps in and can play either of those roles really, really well. He might not be as dynamic with the ball in his hands as Debo is, which makes me think maybe they're leaning towards trading away Ayuk. Doesn't matter. I still think Pearsall in that offense is going to be incredible. It's funny too, because when you watch his film and you hear people comp him to Julian Edelman, you kind of understand that now this guy is going to a situation where he can become that, right? It's like, this is a team that's going to be deep in the playoffs every single year. And guess what? You're going to need that guy that's going to make that big catch on the big stage. Pearsall is that. And I love that for him. I'm really excited to see how it works out. But for me, I just have to at least give him his flowers and just say congratulations, because super cool that he ended up going first round.
This is why people need to listen to us. We've been saying it for weeks. The more we watch, the more receivers we watch, and this is such a good receiver class. But the more we watch, we said, damn, man, Ricky Pearsall, like these guys are good. Like this guy's good. This guy, but damn, Ricky Pearsall, like I don't know if they're better than Ricky Pearsall. Like the more I watch, and normally it's the other way around. If you have a deep class, the more you watch other players out of position, you start to move the other guys down. Whereas Ricky Pearsall, when we're watching these other guys, we're like, no, we got to move him up a bit. I did have Ladd McConkey just above Ricky Pearsall, but based on all of our discussions and everything we've been saying, we said we would not be shocked if Pearsall goes much earlier than people are mocking him or anticipating him to go, because he's just that good. He's complete. He's solid. He's everything they're looking for. So it's not that much of a surprise, and it's a great fit. I mean, honestly, I'm at the point where any offensive player to San Francisco is a great fit, because you just know that coach has a plan and he knows what to do with the weapons he has. So it's always going to be a great fit. But Ricky Pearsall, yeah, fantastic fit. And if you were paying attention, you should not be this surprised.
100%. Okay. Picks we didn't like. We'll do that, and then we'll just briefly talk about some reaches. But picks we didn't like, I'm going to be that guy, and I've been talking about this for a long time. Not my dislike, but my kind of confusion with the hype surrounding Brock Bowers as this elite tight end prospect. And even if he is this elite tight end prospect, I still just didn't like him going to Vegas at the Raiders at pick 13. He was 17 on my big board. And we talked about the Vikings and how they did a great job team building with their picks. Vegas drafted a tight end in the second round last year. So now they've used a first and a second in back-to-back years on what is one of the least valuable positions in the NFL, unless you have an absolute stud, right? Unless you have Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Sam Laporta, it's just not worth it, right? Like, it's very rare for rookie tight ends to hit. It's very rare for tight ends to really make their mark until their second contract. And now they've invested in two. So while Bowers might be an awesome player and he might be super explosive and he might even have a great year in Vegas, it's just not valuable enough of a player to go to a team that has holes all over the roster and doesn't even have a quarterback, right, to throw him the football. Am I excited to see him with Gardner Minshew, because they both look like maybe they yeah, I'm not going to say it. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like those two guys together could be a little bit of fun, but the situation's just not figured out. It's a really rough situation. They should have done something else, in my opinion. That's probably my least favorite pick in the entire draft.
Yeah, even just an all-22, I hate the fit. If you needed a tight end in a rookie draft in all-22 this year, it was pretty much Bowers or not bust, because there's other guys there in day two, but none that separate themselves from clearly, at least, from other prospects that came out in more recent years. you didn't want to see him go to the you don't know who's going to throw him the ball 15 months from now. You can't even project a clear sort of target hog role for him because he seems more of that type of work the middle of the field as a tight end target player. But they got Adams for that. They and then they drafted Mayer last year. So again, you're gonna roll out 12 personnel in this day and age,
Right.
with Gardner Minshew and who else? I don't get it. I don't get it.
But think about that for a second, right? Because that's what's really interesting to me is like if Bowers went to a different team that didn't have a tight end already, right? You would maybe expect that they would at least play him and try to get him on blocking downs on clear run plays, right? They would leave him on the field. But when you have Michael Mayer, that's his like strength, that might not happen, right? Like Bowers' field time might actually be limited because of the situation he went to. Will they just line him out wide? Maybe. I don't know. But like, yeah, they have Jacoby Myers, who they've paid. They've paid Devontae Adams. I think it's a limited situation for him.
Yeah. Don't like it at all. I really don't. If you, like I said, if you were eyeing him, that's not where you wanted him to go. So yeah, rough. I'm going to go ahead other side of the ball again. And I'm going to say Chop Robinson to Miami. And I said it back when this happened late in the season, and I hated to say it, but the defense is pretty much done for, right? After the Achilles injury to Jalen Phillips, and then Chubb's second major knee injury, right? Plus his age, you can't rely on either of them. As far as I'm concerned, that entire pass rush was completely wiped out at that point in time, not just for 2023, but in the future. You cannot count on either of those guys at all. So yeah, clearly there was a big need for edge. So you go ahead and you take Chop Robinson, who's the most explosive edge rusher over 250 pounds that has tested in NFL history. Okay, great. But what else is there? Shaq Barrett is old. You lost Christian Wilkins on the inside. I think Seiler drops off as a result of not playing alongside Wilkins as well. Ramsey has maybe a year left of elite play. And then you could say the same with Kendall Fuller at the other cornerback spot as far as another year of legit good play at corner. It just seems like that defense is just on a huge downturn right now or is up for a huge downturn. And 16 months from now, I don't know, Chop Robinson could be looking around like Will Smith at that final episode of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where he's just kind of like in the living room all by himself, like, oh, this is it. Everybody's gone. It's him and what, the safety. I don't like the way that defense is shaping up to be in 2024 period, and then 2025 and beyond. It's just not a good place to be. I don't think he's going to get much help at all as he develops, or at least in his early years. So it's going to be rough. Bright side, he's the type of player his style can create for himself because he has that first step equalizer that, again, is just something that could be a trump card. But outside of that, the fit, it's not where you wanted him to go.
The only positive for him in that situation is the fact that their defensive back group is pretty good, right? It's like Jalen Ramsey, Javon Holland. There's decent talent back there that should allow him to have maybe another quarter of a second or whatever it might be to make a play. That's good. But you're right. It's like if he's double teamed, it doesn't matter. It's going to be impossible, right? For him to actually make a legitimate impact on the place that he's on the field. I actually had him as my second pick also. And the reason is all the things you said, but on top of that, it's also from that other hat of team building. They took Chop over Jordan Morgan, Barton, Guyton, Johnson, Powers, Johnson, right? We talked about how poor that offensive line is. And when your quarterback has had the injuries that he's had, to not go offensive line for him is just a testament to them maybe not be willing to make the investment in Tua, right? Like, is there maybe shades of that happening here? They haven't paid him yet. So is there a chance that this leads to maybe they play one more year with him and then they walk away? I don't know, but it just doesn't really feel good to me. I'm looking at that situation and I'm saying I'm staying away from the, Miami players.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's quite that deep yet, but yes, their window was 22, 23. That's it. I think the window's no more. I'm not sure if we're going to talk about Powers Johnson when it comes to the other guys left, but there's even more stuff off the field there than even we had been discussing in the weeks leading up to this. So there's a reason he's still out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps falling.
We will get to that, and I'm excited. Not excited. I'm curious to hear.
That's not an exciting topic, Chris.
Right. I'm curious to hear about it. So, who else did you have on your picks you didn't like?
I only had one more. I didn't want to be too negative in this episode. And I actually do think, by and large, the league did a really good job of finding fits. Even if they reach for some guys, you see the fit on their team for the most part. So I only came with two, and I think I talked to you about this. Might be offline, and it's one of those deals. Of course, like the best podcast episodes are the ones that don't make it in front of the camera, right? I don't like Jayden Daniels' fit to Washington. I mentioned that in the mock episode, I liked May's fit better for those receivers. I get Daniels can create. I know he was top, but the problem is he was top 10 to throw in time to throw rather in the Power 5 last year at just under 3 seconds. I think it was over 2.9. So right around 3 seconds in time to throw. And he just doesn't seem like that distributor on tape, right? When we watched him, it was more so creation, right? Maybe he was patient and letting some crossing routes develop and stuff, but otherwise it was a lot of creation and playmaking on his behalf, which is great. I mean, it's a good thing to have that in your toolbox, but he wasn't that just point guard distributor with precise timing and clear, consistent mechanics in the intermediate game. That's really not his game. So I get that he graded really well throwing deep, and they meaning the Commanders have Terry McLaurin, who is one of the top deep threats in the league today. I get that, but the offensive line is not that great, especially at tackle. And you're in a division where every single team has great edge players. Dallas, the Giants, and the Eagles all can bring pressure from the edge. And that's not something that Daniels really dealt with effectively in college. A lot of teams played more so contained, so he wasn't under a lot of heavy pressure from the edge because of that, right? Because of his threat to run, they tried to contain him more so than pressure him. In the NFL, that's a little bit different. And when he was pressured from the outside, he wasn't that great. So I don't like the fit. I really don't. I get what they see in him and why he could have been, or he clearly was, their number 2 guy on the board at quarterback. I just don't love the fit for him.
It's that conversation of the best remaining, or the highest ceiling and the lowest floor. What pick your poison, right? And I think they went with him because the floor is much higher. I get it, but I also totally agree with what you're saying and why maybe they should have gone with Drake May. So I only had 2. I only had Chop and Bowers as the 2 because I agree with you. I think it was a fantastic draft. I think teams are obviously learning from past mistakes besides the Raiders.
Raiders never learn from past mistakes.
Yeah, they never do. But I do want to just kind of identify some reaches, right? I'm not saying this is a bad pick in any way or I didn't like it. It was just a reach compared to the big board and my board. Latham at 7, he was my 13. I love the fit and I get it. But when Olu was still on the board, it was a little strange to me and Fuanga to go with Latham. I get that can play multiple positions. You might like that. But you also think about Tennessee and what they're trying to build there. I would want a foundational player. They don't have many of those. I don't know if Latham is that compared to Olu. Like, I think Olu could be that guy. You just plug it left tackle and you don't have to think about it at all. And it's great to have versatility and it's great to be that kind of a player, but there's really nothing more valuable than the guy that starts at left and is just awesome for 10 years. So for me, just thought that was a little bit strange picking Latham over Olu and Fuanga. Again, also like 6 spots above where I had him on my big board.
Yeah, sometimes you overthink it. And we talked about, hey, Latham's going to go earlier than people think.
Mm-hmm.
But people like him. And I get why they like him. You had the best pass blocking left tackle in the draft there for you, just sitting there, and you just I think it was a little cute. They've been getting cute with their offensive line picks for a while now. Skoronski was a cute pick. It's just I don't know. I mean, you look at their roster and you kind of see that this is a team that's not that great at this whole team building thing. They're just not. It's just a lot of mismatch, just pieces kind of just thrown against the wall. I don't like what Tennessee's doing at all. And I think Latham he's still going to be fine. I mean, I talked about how even if you put him at left tackle, I think he could do that very effectively. I just think they overthought this one. But Latham himself is still a quality player who can still be very good. But by and large, that team is still a ways away. There were better fits for Latham in the league, better landing spots for him to go to from an all-22 standpoint. So, yeah, that was not a pick that was maximized. And this is why the Titans are kind of in the situation they're in.
Agreed. And then the other, there's a few more, but Penix and Nix, obvious, right? Those are clear ones, right? Yeah. Penix was...
Everybody's talking about that. Every single podcast, everyone's talking about it.
So we don't need to, right? So I just want to say Penix was drafted at 8. He was 34 on my big board. Nix, 12. He was 33.
Yeah.
Way early. But Quinyon Mitchell, another guy, goes to the Eagles at 22. He was my 38. So 16 spots early. To me, that's a bit of a reach. But this guy's really good. He went to maybe the best situation in terms of what other talents around him on that team. But we talked about it last night. Doesn't necessarily mean the Eagles are great at developing this type of player. So who's really to say if that's going to be a great spot for him? I don't know. Robinson at 27 was another interesting one. I loved him. And I actually, when we talked and we kind of did our own mocks on the side, I had him in the first round. I think you did too. He gets picked at 27. I had him 43 on my big board. And then the last one, just Xavier Leggett, he gets taken at 32. He was 46 on my big board. So 14 spots early. Makes sense for Carolina though, right? They got kind of the more possession guy in Deontay Johnson from the Steelers. They have a couple other guys as well. Adam Thielen, right? They have those type of receivers. So maybe you want something different. You want a bigger body that can win in different ways, can maybe be a big catch kind of guy. They get him. But for me, again, maybe it's a bit of a reach because I don't know necessarily the likelihood of success, right? We talked about that for a few other guys. What is the likelihood that he becomes A.J. Brown or DK Metcalf, right? It's kind of like, in my mind, it's maybe like 35%. And it might even be a little lower than that.
Yeah, that's I have nothing to add. I think you nailed that. Did you mention JJ McCarthy as a reach?
I did not. I had him as 11. Okay. He got picked 10. That's good for me.
Just checking. All right. I don't have to say any more about that. I wouldn't necessarily classify this as a reach because it's not, but it's a risk, and it's Latu. Going to Indianapolis, and the need is totally there. And Latu's the most complete edge player in the class. So yeah, it makes a ton of sense, but the injury is very scary, and they were hot and heavy on some cornerbacks. They do need some corners, and they passed up on their pick of the litter at corner to take Latu. So I think from a pure player standpoint, sure, that's fine, but it's risky because you don't know how long he's going to last. You don't know how his body's going to hold up. He already had to medically retire once before. So it's just a risk. I didn't have much of a reach. I think you pretty much nailed it there, but I just want to point out, hey, it's a risk. It could turn out to be phenomenal, and it wouldn't be shocking at all because Latu is a great player. We love Latu here. But it's a risk, and it's a risk when you had clear needs elsewhere on the same side of the ball that were less risky. So I guess commend you for taking the risk, but it's a risk.
Yeah, I kind of like the risk for them. Like I do, and that's why I didn't mention it, because when you're talking about, again, most valuable position on your team, and they chose the first defensive player off the board, right? In Latu. He was the first defensive player off the board, I believe. You obviously believe that he can become an elite edge rusher. You wouldn't have done it otherwise. So if you think you got that, and you think you have Anthony Richardson on the other side of the ball that you think could be an elite quarterback, I like that. It's a huge, both of those guys are huge risks, but if they succeed, the reward is massive, right? So I kind of like it. I think that's the right risk to take.
Yeah.
But we also talked about how once you got past maybe like Amarius Mims, pick 21, 22, right, on our big board, there was another 20 guys that all could have been in that first round conversation. We're here, right? The first round's over. I have 8 guys remaining that I had first round grades on, that I had in my top 30 that are remaining. So let's maybe just talk about a few of these guys. So Jackson Powers-Johnson was my 15 on my big board. He's still available. What's going on there? You have some insight. I haven't heard anything yet, so I'm curious.
I don't have specifics, but it's some off-field stuff. So there's twofold, but there's the medical and then there's off-field stuff. Like he, at least one visit, he completely bombed pre-draft. I think where it's getting around. So he could go top 40, but we're talking about a player that at least on film tape wise, top 20-ish type of player. So he's already fallen because of these things. How far? I don't know how that ultimately ends up, but there's some other things at play here, which is why he's still around.
So are you being cheeky in that like you actually don't know, or you know but you
No,
just
no,
don't
no.
want to talk about it?
No, I don't know the specific. I know he bombed a visit, at least one visit that he just like after meeting with the team, they're like, "Oh yeah, cool, you're done."
Wow.
So yeah,
Pretty interesting too, because my floor comp for him was Ryan Jensen. And like when you talk about his film, like Jackson Powers Johnson film, he plays a little bit like he's maybe not the greatest dude in the world. Like he's very
I want
aggressive.
that. I don't.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like I had him as my 15th guy. Like I thought it
Move
was
him to my
awesome.
board if after that visit.
Yeah.
You know, great.
But if that also is off the field and he can't separate those two things, that's problematic, right? And okay. So that's a thing. All right.
It's a thing. So that's why he's there. It's not just tape, or it's probably not tape at all, to be honest. So
he'll be a Cowboy at some point.
No, they're locked in with their injured running back coming up here later tonight. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be great.
Cool. Adonai Mitchell was my 19 at the big board. He is still available, probably for the same reason.
We've heard those whispers. Those have been a bit more public. So yeah,
right.
There's concerns there too.
Kool-Aid was both of our top cornerback. He was on 20th on my big board. He's still available. There's only been 2 corners taken. And I kind of get like the different fits and why you would have taken the other guy. So like it makes sense. We talked about how there was maybe 4 or 5 corners in this draft that were interchangeable in terms of where people would have them at number 1. Nate Wiggins was taken. So there was 3 corners taken. But yeah, so like Kool-Aid being our first corner still on the board, to me, that's like a slam dunk. If a team takes him now, that's a slam dunk. You got to steal 100%.
Yeah, his name's Kool-Aid. But yeah, I mean, we talked about how he's our number 1 corner, but we're not going to project him to go as the first corner off the board. So this isn't a surprise where he is. And remember, he's got the foot issue, and we don't know how that affects the timetable too, and how people are working around that. But super talented player. I don't expect him to last too long tonight.
No, me neither. And then Ladd McConkey, right? It's he was 23 on my big board. He's still available. We talked about how maybe the lack of production. It's something I kept asking, right? I was like, with all of the things we see, with all the conversation around him, all the good things that are happening off the field with him, is there a question about the production? And it seems like maybe the answer was yes.
Then these teams don't know how to draft. I don't know what I'm trying to tell you. You're missing a big one.
I got more. I have more guys.
Oh, keep going then. What do you? Yeah.
I pause. I let you say a couple things. I don't want to just be the.
I like McConkey. We all like McConkey, but only so many receivers can go in the first round. I think that's true. I don't think McConkey's going to last long either. I don't think it's anything against McConkey that he's still here. It's just there's a lot of receivers.
So like just like being a jerk, right? Being a jerk a little bit.
Yeah, please.
The Chiefs draft Xavier Worthy. The Bills draft Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey becomes Andy Isabella. Bills, everyone's fired. Everyone's fired.
Not Andy Isabella.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. I think he's much better than that. But I just have to be a little bit of a jerk sometimes. Cooper DeJean, right? He was 24 on my big board. He's still available. Zach Frazier was 25 on my big board. He's still available. I'm obsessed with his game. I would like kill to have him on the Packers. T'Vondre Sweat is the other one that I love, 26 on my big board. But I know the guy you're talking about is Johnny Newton, who was 30 on my big board, is still available. I kind of get it. Like I get it in that
these teams are dumb.
I had him at 30, so I had him right on that line, right? I think he needs to go now, but I don't think it's crazy that he's still there.
No, it's absolutely crazy. And I love Darius Robinson, but explain to me why you took him over Newton. I don't get that one at all.
Have them stand next to each other. It'll tell you why.
I don't stand next to him, but Newton's going to be in the backfield. I don't care where he starts. He always stands next to him in the huddle. I'm not trying to look pretty in the huddle. I'm trying to disrupt the game. And Newton, oh my gosh, these teams. This is what I'm talking about when teams don't know how to draft, right? Like, I'm sorry. Let's take a step back for a second. If the Raiders took Johnny Newton instead of Brock Bowers, that would not have been a surprising pick. It would not have been an out-of-pocket pick. Instead, he's still here at pick 33 come Friday night. That's just insane to me. This Johnny Newton is what I'm talking about when teams don't know how to do this. Phenomenal player. He's not going to last long. Some team that knows what they're doing is either going to snatch him up or they're going to trade up to get him. He's a great player.
Is there anybody I missed that you would say?
I don't think you missed him because I don't think this was something that's going to – I don't think we didn't expect this, so we did expect this. But Tyler Nubin, I have 27th on my big board. Number one safety, but positional value, not a huge need, and he's not like Mr. Dynamic difference maker at safety. So I get why he's still on the board for sure, but just want to shout him out as well because he's again, I'm considering Cooper DeJean a corner. But Nubin, number one safety on the board in my top 30, but is still available heading into round 2. So not a shocker, but want to give him a shout out. He's a good player.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of those guys. And I mean, we know that there's off-field stuff with Jermaine Burton, so he might continue to fall. But like, that's a guy that if your team gets and you could like straighten him out. That's an awesome pick. I also like Chris Jenkins. I'm a big fan of him. So I'd be excited if my team took him. And then, the Cowboys are going to be the first team to draft a running back. Just depends on which one.
They picked up that third so they could take a running back day too. I could just see it now. And I'm just, oh my gosh. Hopefully great trade, by the way. To pick up a third rounder to move back 5 spots is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And they're going to just, do what they do. And I hope I'm wrong, but I could totally see them like, we need a running back. So we're going to take the one with the torn ACL. Like, oh, gosh, it's so bad. So bad.
It's rough, man.
And it's nothing against Brooks. That team has way too many holes right now. They need a linebacker. They could use a corner. They still have a hole at center. I mean, they got holes all over the damn place. And they're just, they're just honing in on a running back day 2, possibly the first one off the board.
I'm biting my tongue as a Packer fan because I wanted them to go O-line. They did. I'm pumped about it. But it's so the Packers if now they have 2 second-round picks and they go linebacker safety, right? And I'm just going to be super upset about it. Like,
Newman, baby.
Give me that corner. Get DeJean, get Kool-Aid, get Johnny Newton right on the inside, like build the trench. But all right, everyone enjoy tonight. I hope you guys loved it last night, but enjoy tonight because this is really where teams win. You might lose based on what you did yesterday, but you win with what you do today. Thank you all for tuning in. If you haven't yet, give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, and have a great day.